There are forces of good and forces of evil at work in the world today. What are these forces? Who is responsible for the good? And who is responsible for the evil? Richard Shoff talks about current events which are rarely discussed by the mainstream media, events that affect us all. This program seeks to identify, to inform, and to equip the believer for what's ahead. Welcome to What in the World is Going On?
This is What in the World is Going On, and I'm your host, Richard Shoff. The program is sponsored by Lincoln Log Homes. We are pro-Christian, pro-American, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, and here by the grace of God. And incidentally, folks, I usually mention at the end of the broadcast, but today I'm doing it before. If you want a Lincoln Log Homes or just want to talk about log homes, call me anytime. I'm the CEO at Lincoln Logs, and I'll be right proud to talk with you. Dial 800-848-3310. I'll talk with you personally. And if you want a home, I'll get you a heck of a good price. Anyway, I want to just mention that I'm broadcasting this, taping it at about mid-afternoon on October 25th. But I got up about 3 o'clock this morning. I often do. Good time to drink coffee and see some good reruns. I saw Judge Janine. And after her opening letter, she gave the rest of her program to our good President Donald Trump, who was speaking out in Wisconsin. By the way, I like Judge Janine. She does a tremendous job. One of the best at Fox. Our president was going at him late last night in Wisconsin. Earlier, I'd seen him on Fox as he spoke in Ohio, and before that, when he spoke down at Lumberton, North Carolina. And of course, I know he started his day voting down in southern part of Florida. Boy, I thank God that Trump's our president. Anyway, there was Trump out in Wisconsin. He made some reference and he may have been exaggerating, I don't know. It sounded good to me, and it looked likely. He had about 20,000 people inside, another 25,000 outside. This is about 3-something in the morning that I'm seeing this. And it made me so proud to be an American. It reminded me how great it is to live in America and how blessed we are. I'm proud of our president. I really got excited when he pointed out, which I believe to be true, that, and I'm quoting, this is probably the most important election in the history of our country. And I believe it's so, folks. And again, I want to tell you that our president, Donald Trump, sure makes this old boy proud. I'm going to talk to you a bit about what really broke just the same night of the debate. It actually came out through Giuliani a few days before. And this is not a breaking news program, but this is a breaking news public and subject, and mainly it is because the mainline media won't talk about it. Hey, and you know, public broadcasting, they're tax supported. I haven't seen one word on this subject from them, and little or nothing from the mainline media, but thankfully Fox has been on it. What am I talking about? Hey, that whistleblower. Tony Bobulinski? Yeah, the one that's turned over his records to the FBI on Biden? It's all there, folks. You even saw it referred to in the debate. But what I want to talk about is not just that, but the fact that the mainline media, it completely ignores it. Boy, what a bunch of pukes. For the last week and a half, Democrats have seen Rudy Giuliani, Steve Bannon, and the computer repair shop owner in Delaware as their biggest concerns. They screamed about Russia supplying the information on Hunter Biden's laptop, and they claimed election interference again. Of course, it was untrue. Unfortunately for them, they've got a much bigger problem emerging, and it's pretty much out there now, but more to come. A former associate of Hunter, James, and Joe Biden has stepped forward to acknowledge the dealings detailed in the emails found on the laptop, and they found that they are true. They've said that the Democrat presidential candidate, Joe Biden, was directly involved with deals pertaining to the Chinese Communist Party. Now he's turning in his business records and those devices to the FBI. At a press conference held by Tony Bobulinski, the former CEO of the company the Bidens used to engage with China, he now has told the world that Joe Biden was involved in shady dealings with China. Bottom line, folks, he was on the take. Do you understand what I'm saying? He made money off it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it went through Hunter. He didn't take it from the Chinese. No, his son did. And his son, as we're going to point out, was splitting it, plus a little extra, to the big man. Who was the big man? Joe Biden. A quote from Bobulinski. I'm making this statement to set the record straight about the involvement of the Biden family, Vice President Biden, his brother Jim Biden, his son Hunter, in dealings with the Chinese. I've heard Joe Biden said that he's never discussed business dealings with Hunter. That is false. I have firsthand knowledge about this because I've dealt directly with the Biden family, including Joe Biden. It's been confirmed that Bobulinski did indeed work directly with the Bidens. Wow. And this is also going before the Senate Homeland Security Committee that's headed up by Ron Johnson, a real good Republican. They're going to be talking about it too. Continuing with this report, I've also heard that Vice President Biden said on Tuesday, October 20th, that Senator Ron Johnson, the chair of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, should be ashamed for suggesting the Biden family sought to profit from their name. Bobulinski continued, well, here are the facts that I know. A quote, his words, not mine. Here are the facts that I know, and everything I'm saying is corroborated by emails, WhatsApp chats, agreements, documents, and other evidence, and the American people can judge for themselves, end quote. The evidence that he's now turned over to the FBI were with him for the press conference. He said he'll also be speaking with Senator Homeland Security Committee Chairman Ron Johnson. Continuing, I brought, for record, 3 phones, and he showed them. He showed them just prior to the debate. These phones that span the years 2015 through 18, he said, these phones have never been held by anybody else besides me, end quote. Other business associates from the past reached out to Bobulinski to try to dissuade him from going public. I was told this past Sunday by somebody who was also involved in this matter that if I went public, this information would bury all of us, the Bidens included. I'm quoting now Bobulinski. I have no wish to bury anyone. I've never been political. The few contributions I've made have been to Democrats. But what I am is a patriot and a veteran. To protect my family name and my business reputation, I need to ensure that the facts are out there, end quote. What Bobulinski detailed was damning. The business entity that he created with the Bidens was discussed way back in 2015 when Biden was still vice president. This is extremely important to understand because it implies that the Biden's position was an important part of the deal. Our man, our current Democrat candidate for president, Joe Biden, when he was vice president, was selling us out to the Chinese for money through his son into his pocket. Those are my words. Well, according to the National Pulse, Bobulinski, who was in business with Biden in 2017, insists that Joe Biden is, quote, the big guy, an individual referenced in one of the unearthed emails from Hunter Biden's laptop who was profiting from the lucrative deals. The deal surrounded CEFC. What is that? That's a Chinese energy company with deep ties to the Chinese Communist Party through its founder and its status as a proxy of the Chinese military. And that, folks, is according to the U.S. Department of Defense. Bobulinski, who has supported Democrats in the past, released a statement confirming the former vice president was well aware and financially involved in the Hunter Biden business dealings. A quote, I am the CEO of Sinohawk Holdings, which was a partnership between the Chinese operating through CEFC Chairman Yi and the Biden family. I was brought into the company to be the CEO by James Gillier and Hunter Biden. The reference to the big guy in the much publicized May 13, 2017 email is in fact a reference to Joe Biden. The other JB referenced in that email is Jim Biden, Joe's brother. Hunter Biden called his dad the big guy, or my chairman, and frequently referenced him for his sign-off or advice on various political and potential deals that we were discussing. I've seen Vice President Biden saying he never talked to Hunter about his business. I've seen firsthand that that is not true, because it wasn't just Hunter's business. They said they were putting the Biden name, the family name, and its legacy on the line. Many of the CBS, NBC, the whole bunch, little or no coverage. You'll pick it up on, if you watched the debate, you saw it. Where is he on fracking? Yes and no. One time yes, one time no. No fossil fuel, then yes. Depends on what the dateline is and who's listening. One thing he's consistent on, though, your taxes are going to go up. You're doggone right they are, folks. But there's something else I want to point out to you. Another bit of news on Joe Biden. Did you remember when presidential candidate Joe Biden promised to grant amnesty to all illegal immigrants, those currently living in the U.S.? This is a policy that could lead to nearly a quarter increase in the total population of our country. Naturally, it would strain our resources. It would supply Democrats with a whole abundance of voters, wouldn't it? Biden's amnesty pledge is a central tenet of his campaign, declaring, if elected, quote, he will immediately begin working to provide a roadmap to citizenship for nearly 11 million undocumented immigrants. Isn't that wonderful, folks? And this is what the Democrats have given us as their candidate for our president. Since 11 million is the Democrats' go-to number when estimating the illegal immigrant population in the United States, Biden is effectively promising universal amnesty to a policy favored by globalists and spurned by American workers. A more recent estimate from the 2018 Yale study suggests the illegal immigrant population surpasses 22 million people. What's more, White House data shows that each new American brings in an additional 3.5 family members to the U.S. through chain migration. Amnestizing 22 million individuals could therefore lead to a nearly 25% increase in the U.S. population all in one swoop, or a population increase of 77 million people. If each newly minted American brings over just one relative, that's another 20 million new immigrants in Biden's first term alone. And nothing in the law would stop people from bringing in over more than one. Most sponsor more. And once again, I repeat myself, folks, that is who's running against our president, Donald Trump, to lead the United States of America. Think about it. Think about it. And you wonder why I'm happy? Well, because I've got some good news for you. You ask, how could Biden be leading? All the polls, all the pundits, the mainline media points out we haven't got a chance. They say Biden's leading. But I'm here today to tell you he is not. And that's why I'm happy today. That's why I'm joyous today. Biden is not leading. I've got some proof for it. I'm going to give you a couple of sources. Here's some good news. This item came to me this past week from Wayne Allen Root. He knows the fake poll alert. Proof he's got, and I'm going to share it with you. Biden is not winning. Dateline, time, October 11th of this year. The author of this report, Wayne Root, says, back in 2016, I played Paul Revere, except my announcement was, quote, the Trump victory is coming. The Trump victory is coming. That's back in 2016, folks. He notes he made over 1,500 TV and radio appearances to deliver the message that the polls were all wrong. I told Donald Trump supporters again and again to ignore the fake news. That was all fake news and also the fake polls. Tens of thousands of Trump voters emailed me back. Now, this was 2016. to thank me for giving them hope when all seemed lost. Hundreds of conservative radio and TV hosts thank me for keeping my spirits up and keeping up the spirits of the Trump army when Trump voters were at their darkest and lowest points. For better or worse, that's my talent in life, our author says. Seeing through the faulty math, the lies, the fraud, the propaganda of the pollsters and the mainstream media in order to keep Trump voters excited. That's my purpose, keeping them motivated, focused, and in the game. He knows he was right back in 2016, and he said, I'll be right again on this November 3rd. Despite all of faulty polls showing a double-digit loss, he notes, I believe President Trump is on his way to a landslide electoral victory, even larger than the 2016 victory, and I can prove it. Here he goes. First, he says, this election looks like a carbon copy of 2016, except every poll back then showed Trump headed for disaster. But he notes he had a secret weapon. I called it the taxi poll. My taxi buddy drove a taxi in Las Vegas. Every person who got on her taxi was told, quote, I'm doing a poll. It's 100% confidential. I don't even know your name or want to know it. But just tell me, who are you voting for? The results were overwhelmingly for Trump. And I knew then what was about to happen. Our author continues today, same phenomenon. In middle America, there are thousands and thousands of Trump lawn signs. But where are the Biden signs? There's almost none to be found. Me talking here a little bit, folks. Have you watched the crowds at the Trump rallies? Thousands and thousands of people. In Wisconsin last night again, after the third stop of the day, he had 20,000 in the building and another 25,000 trying to get in. Folks, understand this. Polls don't matter. What people say to pollsters doesn't matter. What matters is only the people that go to the polls in a few battleground states, in particular Florida and Midwestern states of Ohio, Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Roots notes, and I quote, my family tell me these states are 100% Trump country. In small towns and utter suburbs, you can't find the support for Biden. It's 2016 squared, he notes. After what Trump has done for the U.S. economy and manufacturing jobs, and to win the trade war with China, he is a hero. People may not tell that to the pollsters, but you see, Trump is king of the Midwest. But wait, there's more. Media quotes nonstop any poll that shows Trump losing by double digits. Root points out, but I never heard a word about the Democracy Institute Sunday Express poll. That one showed Trump beating Biden 46-45 and winning almost all the battleground states by a healthy margin. That poll didn't oversimplify Democrats by a mile, as most other polls do, where they polled only likely voters. Likely voters in battleground states are all that matter. Remember that, listener. Likely voters in battleground states are all that matter. Or, he points out, the Poll Watch poll that was released just recently, that showed Trump winning nationally in battleground states and in the Electoral College. Trump dominates on the two issues that matter most to Americans, the economy and law and order. Have you heard that in the Real Clear Politics battleground average, Trump is slightly ahead of where he was at this time in 2016? He was on his way to victory over Hillary Clinton back then, and now he's even better shape. Most importantly, a new Gallup poll reports 56% of Americans say they're better off under Trump than they were 4 years ago under then-President Barack Obama and then-President Joe Biden. Every expert knows what clinches elections. Quote, it's the economy, stupid. A solid majority of Americans feel better off today than 4 years ago despite the COVID-19. You think they're voting for Biden? By the way, that's 50%. Is the highest number in the history of Gallup, asking, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Ronald Reagan got 44% in that Gallup poll and won the election in a landslide. Trump is now at 56%. Americans aren't convinced that Trump is great for the economy on October 29th of this year. 5 days before the election, the third quarter gross domestic product will be released. The Atlantic Fed estimates it'll be 34.6% economic growth that they report, the highest in the history of America since 1776. Still not convinced? Since the primaries were born in 1912, no incumbent has ever lost the general election after receiving 75% or more of the vote from their party in the primaries. Donald Trump received 94% of all cast in the 2020 Republican primaries. One more factor. Because of the COVID-19, Team Biden has hardly knocked on any doors in America, but Trump volunteers have knocked on over 20 million doors in battleground states. 12 million to 0. You don't think that changes things on Election Day? By the way, Biden and Vice President nominee Kamala Harris had an event in Arizona on Thursday. 8 people showed up. The liberal media is about to be shocked and awed on November 3rd. Shocked again. Trump is about to win an electoral landslide again. And folks, I want to mention to you something else that we've got. You thought you had heard about the stealing of our election. I need to bring to you on this. The mail-in voting is not going to prevent a Trump victory. Article came to me from Tom Zolakowski. I'm going to reference to you from that as I bring you the closing point of my argument to you today. Most people supporting Donald Trump in this election year are confident that he's going to get more votes in 2020 than he did in 2016. But they fear the fraudulent mail-in ballots will steal or delay the election results. Well, after analyzing some state voting laws and the 16 electoral map, our author points out that he feels confident in saying that neither is a likely outcome. First, only 10 states mail ballots to nearly every voter on their registration polls. Those states have faced justified criticism for risking their voters' integrity because voter rolls are outdated and they make voting identification difficult. But under the Electoral College system, this issue won't affect the outcome of the election. You know why? Well, 8 of those 10 states went blue in 2016, and the other 2, Utah and Arizona, are likely to stay red. Vote by mail will not affect the outcome of the election because it is done mostly in states that Donald Trump doesn't even need to win the election. The second group of concern is the states, 14 of them, including Ohio, who mailed absentee ballot applications, not ballots, applications, to all their registered voters. Unlike blanket mailing of ballots, this system allows for voter verification and provides the state's Board of Elections with an accurate count of ballots to expect on Election Day. This is handy to them if there are issues with mail delivery. In all 35 of the 45 states allowing absentee voting are doing so with a ballot request requirement. Widespread use means most election boards will have accurate information, like those who received a ballot before the election and how many are still in circulation. This they'll have when verifying the state's results. Unless the number of outstanding absentee ballots is greater than the margin of victory for Trump, they weren't going to matter anyway. The third issue is the map itself. Due to the thin margin of victory in 16, a big concern for supporters is the current situation in battleground states. Trump won 6 of them: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, and New Mexico. He lost 5: Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire, Maine, and Colorado. Current polling offers multiple paths to victory for Trump, assuming fair election results and retaining the red wall. Trump is well positioned to pick up Minnesota and New Hampshire, meaning he could lose Pennsylvania and Michigan, yet still win handily with 284 electoral votes. He could lose Wisconsin's 10 votes and still have 274. He could lose Florida and Pennsylvania but win Michigan and still have 271. It takes 270, incidentally. As folks stand, Trump, as things stand now, Trump has a clear path to victory. But our writer notes, in his humble opinion, it's much more likely that Trump wins big than that he loses, even with polls showing Biden up by 15%. Our writer notes that he found data showing that Trump is likely to keep all of his 16 states and win Minnesota and New Hampshire. Additionally, it's highly likely that Nevada, Colorado, and Virginia are in play. That could land him 35 states and an overwhelming victory in the popular vote. Here's why, folks. Let me point a few of these things out. Republican support. In 2016, he had 77%. It's projected this time he'll have 96%. That's 10 million votes. Evangelical Christians. In 16, he had 81%. 2020 projection, 90%. Hispanics. In 16, he had 28%, projected for 20, 36.5. That's a potential swing of another 8.8 million votes from 2016. Catholics, 45% went to Trump in 16. It's projected this time you'll have 53%. That's a potential swing of 12.4 million votes from 2016. Black vote, 8% in 16. Projected this time 15%. A potential swing of 6.8 million votes. All of these projections coming half true, just half true, would guarantee the president a victory. A combination would lead to a landslide. Democrat support for Antifa and defunding the police has alienated significant portions of key swing demographics like African Americans, Hispanics, union workers, and suburban women. Enthusiasm had been further dampened with the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. Securing a 6-3 conservative majority for the next 20 years in 1 week before the election? Hey, what does that do to it? What is Joe Biden's base? Hey, he doesn't have a base. That's why nobody shows up when he appears in public. Probably that's why he stays in his basement. So the map itself looks favorable for Trump despite what the mainstream media tells you. Finally, there's concern about what an extended delay of the election results could mean for Trump. Using the map again, we can see that the other states that allow extended voting periods line up in a way that indicates a clear outcome. Only 15 states are counting ballots after Election Day. Incidentally, Michigan's court just struck down the rule. 9 of these states are red states that Trump won, and only one, Pennsylvania, is close enough for votes counted after the election to even make a difference. So Pennsylvania is the likely troublemaker in delaying an outcome, but only for 3 days, not weeks. Except that we agreed earlier that Trump may not even need Pennsylvania because he's well positioned to win Minnesota and New England. Checkmate! You see, despite what the media will tell you, this election is straight, can undo the people's will, and the Dems know it too. Watch any left-leaning morning show and look how angry everyone is at NBC. Look at how they are. CBS, CNN, just to name a few. If Biden were actually winning by 15%, they wouldn't have that tone. They know they're done for. We need to do our job. We need to turn out, and we need to vote Republican down ballot because we know that any Republican is better than any communist, Democrat, socialist. And just a couple things in closing I'd like to point out to you, a couple of personal comments. Not only do we need to vote, we do, but you see, we've got our number one supporter. I believe that this time is a repeat of 2016. I think that Donald Trump is God's man for the hour. Goodbye until next week.